You might have seen this in the news recently. Since May 2025, Minister Chee Hong Tat shared that if HDB resale prices continue to moderate, the government may consider removing the 15-month wait-out period for private property owners buying an HDB. Then again in June 2025, more articles were publishing explaining why this 15 months wait-out period was implemented in the first place and what it could mean if it's eventually lifted. So if you are watching this video, whether you are a private property owner planning to buy a HDB after your wait-out period, or a current HDB owner wondering about your next move, or even a first-time buyer exploring your option, do stay tuned in this video. In this video, I'll break down what's happening, why it matters, and how you can better position yourself for what's coming next. I'll break this topic into 3 parts. First, what exactly is the 15-month wait-out period and who does it affect or impact? So quick disclaimer, everything I'm sharing here is my personal opinion and experience, so always do your own research before making any decisions. I will always start off with a quick refresher. So what is a 15 months wait-out period and why did the government implement this? Who will it affect and how? So if you are below 55 years old and you sell your private property, you must wait 15 months before you can buy an HDB resale flat. If you are 55 or older, you can buy right away, but it's only a 4-room HDB or smaller. If you want a 5-room EA or EM, you still have to serve the 15-month wait-out period. So why was this rule put in place? This is a cooling measures by government to cool the high demand of resale flats, especially bigger resale flats, 5-room, EM or EA. Because most of the buyers that we met buying into this larger HDB resale are owners which want to right size and means they are previously staying in landed or condo and wanted to retire to use their cash proceeds to fully pay off their next HDB and still have balance of cash proceeds for retirement. Hence, this strong demand, especially for bigger flats, pushed the prices up quickly. Then government will step in to set this cooling measure to slow down the prices because public housing is meant to be kept affordable and for our next generation, right? So looking at this chart, so why was this rule put in place? This is a cooling measure by government to cool the high demand of resale flats, especially bigger resale flats such as 5-room, EA or EM, because most of the buyers that we met buying into these larger HDB resale flats are owners that want to right size, which means they are previously staying in landed or condo and wanted to retire using their cash proceeds to fully pay off their next HDB, then still have balance of cash proceeds for retirement. Hence, this strong demand, especially for bigger flats, push up the prices quickly. So the government will step in to set the cooling measure to slow down the prices because public housing is meant to be kept affordable. So looking at this chart, this shows the number of BTO flats launched yearly, and it shows that 5-room flats are much lesser than the 4-room flats, which then resulted in the prices of the 5-room flats to increase so much too. Because when supply is tight, prices naturally will go up faster. To address this, HDB announced they will roll out over 50,000 BTO flats between 2025 to 2027. And the number of flats reaching their MOP will rise significantly, which means this year the number of flats coming out to MOP will be 8,000, then 13,500 in 2026 and 19,500 in 2028. Second, how will the increase in BTO supply affect prices and demand? So now, when we talk about this number of supplies coming up, what does this big increase in supply mean for you as an owner or buyer? Let me illustrate with something I often explain to my clients, mainly 2 different properties, private and HDB. And in the private property market, like condominiums, there will always be 2 different types of category, which is the new launch versus the resale condo. There's usually a price gap between resale and new launches. For example, if a new launch is selling at 2,000 per square foot, and the resale in the same area are transacting at 1,500 per square foot. So let's use 1,000 square feet to illustrate, meaning 2 million and 1.5 million. So buyers who can't stretch their budget will naturally consider the resale, which many will be able to afford. With a price gap of this 500,000, this will form as a price support for the resale condo to increase over time. Now, let's take a look at HDB, and this time, HDB does not behave as per the private condo. Let's take an example of a HDB in Bukit Batok, which a BTO flat will cost about $400,000. When purchased, after MOP, owners will look at the market and see that nearby cluster of the transacted 5-room resale flats are already asking $900,000, and naturally, they will want to sell around that price. But here's the challenge. Every year, thousands of newer flats enter the resale market, which I mentioned earlier in the news article. About 20,000 flats will MOP in the next 2 years. Also for HDB, their layouts are quite similar. So if buyers were to come in looking at this Bukit Batok cluster, which the layouts are almost the same and MOP is just 1 year difference, which one will the buyer see first? And let's say if all units are commanding at 900,000, which will the buyer see, newer or older blocks? So naturally, buyers will prefer the newer blocks, which what will happen to the HDB around this area that are getting older each year. Given that looking at this map, this is a Bukit Batok cluster, it shows that every year, about close to more than 1,000 units that will hit their MOP, which means they will be coming out to resale market to compete with your pricing. And if your unit is just 1 year or 2 years difference apart from the neighbor units, is it easier or harder to achieve the 900,000 mark when there are other newer MOP HDB flats that are going at 900,000 also? Next, with so much HDB news mentioned, the rising cost of HDB crossing over 1 million, will it soon be 1.5 million or even up to 2 million? And what will happen to our future generation? I believe the reality is that the government wants the price to grow stably. And if you look back between 2012 to 2019, these are the periods when the HDB prices not only stagnated but also dropped. Let's take a case study for a Punggol Central HDB. Let's look at the year from 2010 to 2012. This is actually the peak period. Prices increases from 515,000 all the way up to 592,000. This is just one district, and actually all districts of HDB prices has increased so much and was also at the peak of prices at the year 2012. So the prices had increased so much that the government had to introduce a series of cooling measures in year 2013 to cool the HDB prices. These are the list of cooling measures that they have introduced, such as the loan eligibility, the MSR. Then as you can see here, after the cooling measure has been introduced, you can see a significant dip, say from 469 per square foot to 441 per square foot, and there is not much transaction and demand, and the price had then been stagnated. In certain block, let's link it back to the Punggol Central we mentioned earlier, there is no transaction at all in the year of 2013. Now, from the peak of 592,000, the price was reduced in 2014 to 440,000, and to the lowest to 2015 to be 425,000. This is a significant drop of about 150,000 for a short 2 to 3 years. That is why government has announced over the news recently that the prices will continue to moderate because of the upcoming supply. When you see the government ramping up supply, this is also a signal that government is confident that the price will continue to moderate. Here's another example. Bukit Batok in 2013, the peak period prices was up 765,000. Then cooling measure introduced, there was no transaction in 2014. Then next transaction in 2015, it dropped to 718,000. And all the way to 2017, the prices has reduced to 665,000. So it's over 4 years of 100,000 drop. This wasn't because owner wanted to sell cheap, because no one will want to sell cheap, right? But mainly because they want to move on from his property or for some reason, so there will definitely be a seller that will have to sell, and then there weren't enough buyers in the market. So of course, we are not speculating that HDB prices will drop, but it is also about the importance of protecting your assets and profit we have now, and be aware of the market to know what will impact us in the upcoming years. That's why it's not about guessing whether prices will fall, but about asking yourself, how do you protect your gains if the market turns? Lastly, step 3, how do HDB owners and buyers navigate around this? So far, we have talked about the 15-month wait-out period and the upcoming increase of BTO supply. Next, let's look at what you can do to plan ahead, whether you are thinking to sell or buy. Check if there are many BTO launches planned near your estate. Like just now, I used this example of this Bukit Batok cluster where new flats are launching almost every year. So please be cautious and plan early. Compare that to other places such as like Kovan, when there's very little new supply and most flats are older, about 20 to 30 years old. So in estate like this, prices often hold up better because there are less competition. And also, I understand that not everyone wants to move because, like myself, you have kids might be in school nearby or your family is settled. And then if you are considering to upgrade, you will want to upgrade within your estate. And ideally, can upgrade to a unit which is nearer to the MRT. HDB has classified the upcoming BTO flats to the 3 different classifications: Standard, Plus, and Prime. So this is the step that we can use to plan ahead based on this classification. Standard flats usually further out at heartland area comes with standard subsidies. Then plus flats will be you are having a good connectivity as in nearer to the city center, amenities, or at heartland area that is nearer to MRT. Then lastly, prime area, mostly the central area. You have the most strictest rule and it is with the least subsidies. So these both plus and prime location will come with a longer period of MOP of 10 years, and then you are not able to rent out the whole unit even after MOP. Your next buyer have to also fulfill a certain income ceiling of not exceeding 14,000, and the MOP period is also up to 10 years. So if resale buyers want a good location near MRT but are unable to meet the restrictions such as the income ceiling of 14,000, their natural choice will be resale flats near MRT. So if you currently own a flat that isn't near an MRT and your estate has lots of new supply coming up, it could be worth moving to a resale flat closer to the MRT to protect your long-term value. Here's an example of my client's case study. They own a 4-room HDB at Yishun Avenue 4, a newly MOP but is quite far from the MRT. Okay, and the average selling price was around 600,000. Advice was to swap to upgrade to a 5-room flat which is closer to the MRT. Okay, because 5-room flats tend to have a stronger demand and better long-term resilience. So you see from here, they can swap to 5-bedroom at an average price of 650,000, which technically they will only need to top up about 50,000 just based on the average sales without including the miscellaneous costs. Then let's dive into the financial calculation on how I proposed this swapping method. Back then, when they purchased this BTO price in 2018, it was about 280,000. With the full 80% of HDB loan, it will come out to be 224 of the max 25 years tenure. Monthly installment 1016. Next, after the sale of a 4-room HDB price of 610,000, less the 5 years outstanding loan, it will be about 180,000. Therefore, the total cash and CPF will be 430,000, not including the fees of agent or lawyer fees. Then next, we count the purchase of the 5-room flat, which I recommend to do a swap off of a average price of 650,000 plus your buyer's stamp duty. After using maximizing all the cash and CPF proceeds. The remaining loan was around 234,000, and looking at the money installment will come up to be $1,062, which is just $46 higher than the 4-room HDB. Also, another scenario, if they wanted to keep $100,000 as a reserve fund from the sales proceed of the $430,000, and then purchasing this $650,000 5-room HDB, then the loan would be $334,000. Then this installment definitely will be higher at $1,500 per month. But remember, of the $100,000 that they keep as the reserve fund, they can comfortably cover installments for over 66 months. So this convert up to 5.5 years without thinking about the mortgage, without stress. So with this, they are able to buy a larger house in a better location, nearer MRT, and still have reserve funds not to worry for the next few years. Of course, based on individuals, there will be a lot more calculation and especially timeline that needs to be planned wisely and ahead, as well as looking at which are the areas that are suitable based on the location you are in. So if you're unsure and want to go through this, do reach out to me via my contacts below. Let's recap. Check your cluster, your estate if there is any upcoming supply of BTOs. And then, if you are in a smaller flat considering upgrading to a bigger unit such as 5-room HDB, as there are lesser in supply, which means more protection in your HDB prices. Then lastly, if you are staying in a location such as further from MRT, you may want to consider moving closer to MRT or to a better location in the prime or central area where you can get better protection for your HDB prices. If you found this video useful, hit the like and subscribe button or leave your question below or contact me directly, and I'll see you next time.